I think we're live. Hi, everyone. My name is Ariel. We're going to give everyone a couple minutes to log in. Sorry, we were a few minutes late. Amazing. We've got Jim here. He's our academic lead. He is going to be moderating our chat. And while we are waiting, I'm just going to start by sharing my screen. Okay, there we go. Super excited, guys. This is the first time we have webinars, so it is really nice to be here. Amazing. We've got people here, which is great. I'm super excited. You know, you never know if you're going to have tons of people or crickets. So it's really nice to see some people already logging in. So again, I'm just going to introduce myself and we're going to give people a few minutes, of course, to join in before we get going. But like I said, my name is Ariel. I am a 3D designer as well as a CX manager here at Close. So I specialize in working with our individual users. So you might see me occasionally popping in on our Discord channel or our Connect forum to help out and answer all your guys' questions. I definitely recommend using the chat today, putting in any questions you might think of. Again, it's going to be really slow and steady pace. We're going to go over all the basics of kind of getting ready to just use Close. So if you're completely new to Close, this is definitely for you, or maybe you're just looking for some tips, tips and tricks. That is also great. We're going to go over everything we can today in like an hour and a half to 2 hours. I know, oh my God. Also, do not worry. This is going to be on our YouTube live section later. So if you have to log off or, you know, anything like that, if you miss a part, you're going to be able to go back and watch the recording later, which is always very, very nice. I go back. How do I go? Okay. Let's see. Hopefully. All right, we're back. Yay, Victoria. Sorry, all right. As we all know, nothing live is right without a few technical difficulties. So, you know, bear with us if they happen. Again, this is the first time we're doing a live session. Oh, recording can be so much easier sometimes. All right, so I'm going to go back to right where I was. Sorry, hopefully I'll figure out where we left off. All right, going back to sharing my screen again. Okay. All right, guys. So I am back on the Clo Connect website. And this is where, again, we can download the asset if you want to follow along today. In order to download the asset, the link is in the chat. And just in case, we'll put it in the chat a second time. There's nothing wrong with that. All right. So within this, we're going to add it to our cart. And once it's added to your cart, we can just go ahead and check out. Again, just to point out, this has the completed garment that we're going to be building. And if you scroll further down in here, something nice is we can actually see that there are attachments. So we have a DXF, so we're going to actually build it from a pattern. There is a stripe we're going to be using. There is a tag, as well as an additional graphic. So we have a few different things that we're actually going to be able to use and apply. Once your item is in your cart, we can close out of that pop-up and go right into our little cart here. When we are in the cart area, again, this is totally free, so you won't have to purchase anything. You just have to click to agree to the Connect terms of service. You know, don't control the world. We just have to agree to that and click Place Order. Once you've placed your order, Clo is actually going to take you right to your Purchases tab, All. I'm going to click the little checkbox to the left of the thumbnail, and I'm going to click Download. This is going to let me download the file that we want to use. So I'm going to go ahead and download it. And we can see here, there are some different options. I'm going to just do the .zprj. And for those of you guys who don't know, a .zprj is a Clo project file. And click Download. Now, one thing we have to know is because we are downloading an item that has extra items in it within the folder, it is going to download as a zip folder. And zip folders do have to be unzipped. I'm going to go into my browser for my computer. Let's bring that over here and into my downloads folder. I see right at the top, Intro to Clo, Dress Build, October 10th. I'm going to select this folder and choose Extract All so that I can actually go and unzip it. Exactly. Unzip also on a Mac. You will have to do this Mac or PC. And for everyone's reference, I am on a PC. Extract All. We'll get that additional pop-up. I'm going to click Extract. And right here, I now have this folder. And if I open it up, I will see I have the .dxf, blue and white stripe, the dress build, abstract sunset graphic, and a Clo tag. Perfect. I have everything I need to get going. One thing you do want to remember is just where this folder is, because we are going to, in a few minutes, link it directly into Clo. So we want to make sure I know here it's in my downloads folder. If you guys want to make like a Clo training folder or something, that's also great. Just know the location of the folder. All right, but let's go ahead and actually jump on over into Clo. 1 second, guys. So many tabs open, so many things. Perfect. All right, I'm going to minimize the connect page as well as this, and I am in Clo now. So with Clo launch, and again, you will need Clo to be able to fully follow along, but again, you guys are also able to just watch, start learning, absorbing, and start figuring things out. And as Phoebe always says, have fun learning. Have fun while we're learning. All right, guys. So just a little quick intro about our Clo interface here. We have our 3D screen on our left side and our 2D screen on our right side. So what I think of it, this is where our avatar and our patterns are going to live, kind of how we put them all together. And this right 2D side is like our pattern cutting table. This is where everything's going to lay nice and flat so we can see what we are working on. Now, a few little things to let you guys know. Clo recently did update to 2025.1, and I can see the version I'm on in the lower left-hand corner. So if I'm ever curious what I'm looking at, I can always check right here to know the version. This is the most recent updated version of Clo. Beyond that, with that release, Clo did release the AI Studio. Now, we're not going to be using AI Studio today, but if you are curious about it, there are some great tutorials on our YouTube channel. And also, you also need to activate it. So if yours is grayed out for any reason, don't panic. It just needs to be activated on your account at clo3d.com. The other larger update that happened with 2025.0 was our library that moved. It now lives up here with these 3 links. Previously in Clo, it actually lived on the far left-hand side where it would just say the word library. So a good thing to keep in mind, that's just where it was, but it now lives up here in the right-hand corner. And fun little fact, you can click this icon to open and close the library, open, closed, or the shortcut Y on your keyboard will actually open up the library for you. So just 2 different ways to open it. I'm a big fan of using shortcuts, so I'll always talk about those, though, if I ever do use them, so you'll know what the heck I'm pressing. Within our Clo library, there are Clo default assets. So we have our Clo tab right here, which come with a few default garments, an avatar folder, fabrics, trims, and stages. So lots of different things to choose from, and we're going to be walking through a bunch of that in a minute. Beyond that, we do have a Clo Set tab if you are ever interested in trying out Clo Set, great for asset management, as well as Connect. And this will actually go directly to the Connect store, which is really nice. Beyond that, you'll see I have a few personal folders linked here. Don't worry if you don't have them. Again, they're personally linked to my folder. But if you want to link your folder that we just downloaded from connect.com, remember that folder we downloaded, we unzipped it. With that, we can click this plus icon, and we're going to create a new library for ourselves. With that new library, I'm going to click Add Folder, and this is where I'm going to locate on my computer that folder that we just downloaded and unzipped. Coming to my left-hand side, I just left it in my downloads folder. Downloads, Intro to Clo Dress Build, October 10th. I'm going to only highlight the folder because I want everything in the folder to be linked. So I'm going to click on this folder once. And then at the lower right corner, I'm going to select folder. On a Mac, I believe it says open folder. But with clicking select folder, I now have all of these different files here for me. Nice thing also is where it says my library, if you double click, we can relabel this to anything we like. So maybe I'm like, hey, this is Clo Live. I'm going to officially add in a Clo Live tab to my library. I now have my little Clo Live tab. All right, guys, but I like when starting in Clo to add my avatar first. Personal favorite thing to do, start with an avatar. Again, totally fine if you have a different workflow. I always like to say there's many ways to eat a kiwi. There's many ways to do things in Clo. There is never one set thing. To add in an avatar, I'm going to go to my Clo tab because again, this is where my Clo default assets are going to live. I'm going to come to our avatar tab. And we're going to see a lot of different types of avatars that we can use. Baby, female, hangers, kids, male, mannequins, metahuman guys on Real Engine, super cool. Not going to do it today though, but it is really cool. And shapes, which are great for accessory building. I'm going to add in a mannequin avatar. So I'm going to double click the mannequin folder where I can see a lot of different mannequin options for myself. I'm going to use the female V2.1 mannequin. I'm going to double click on this mannequin to add it to my workspace. Now, one thing to point out is if you see this little white dot in the upper right-hand corner, it just means it's not downloaded yet. So you may need to download the asset first by double clicking. For example, the kids mannequin, if I double click it, Clo's going to download it for me, and then I could always add it. Oh, it actually added for me. I don't need the kid avatar today, so I'm going to click on that avatar in my scene and hit delete on my keyboard because what we're going to be building is a dress. So I do want the female 2.1 avatar. Perfect. I have my avatar. Great. And I'm going to go now back to my Clo Live tab that we added in our library. So again, all these tabs are super easy to work with. If you ever do need to, we can move this completely around all we need to. You can even, if you have multiple monitors, you can have your library tab open all the time just on a separate monitor. And I want to add in this 01 dress pattern. This is the DXF pattern we are going to be building today. I'm going to right click on it and I'm going to choose add to workspace because I want to add it to the existing space where my avatar already is living. When we select add to workspace, we do get a pop-up called add DXF. Load type is set to add because again, we are adding the pattern to our working space. Our unit or scale. Auto scale 99% of the time is what you are going to want to pick, even if you're building patterns in other software such as Gerber or AccuMark. 99% of the time, that is what you'll want. And you usually, if it ever you're curious, like, oh, maybe I needed to use a different one, it's going to be pretty obvious because when you import it at the wrong scale, it usually comes in really, really tiny or really, really big. So you just kind of know right where you need to go. Auto scale, though, is usually what you're going to want. Rotation, not going to rotate them. Reset green, I'm going to maintain the original. Below here are lots of additional options. These will get into more advanced things as you grow in Clo. But for today, all we're going to have is swap cutting lines and sewing lines checked on. It just means that Clo removes the seam allowance in case you do not need it. And for our notch position, this is very up to you as the user, fixed or ratio. You can always choose whichever one works best for you and how maybe you have previously worked with making a different style. I'm going to just leave it on ratio. We're not going to be working with notches today. and click OK. Clo is going to load in my pattern pieces, and I'm also just going to press Y on my keyboard to close my library. And from there, what we have is our half pattern pieces. Perfect. And we can actually see these pattern pieces existing in both spaces. Now, one thing we are going to do is we're going to go into our settings, and we are going to just make sure we're all on the correct settings that we may need today. So at the very top of our screen under settings, we're going to go to user settings. Within our user settings, we're going to go to our view controls. So for our view controls, the most important thing we need to set here is our mouse setting. Now, I am using a regular mouse, just so we can all see. It is a right and a left click button with a scroll wheel in the middle. This is the most recommended tool to use with Clo. Beyond that, some users who have a Mac might be using a Magic Mouse. Again, totally fine to use that as well, but all the commands I will be giving today are going to be using regular mouse settings. Beyond that, back to the left side of our settings, we have a shortcuts tab. I'm going to be using only default shortcuts, but in the future, if you ever felt like you wanted to personalize your settings in any way, this would be the place to do it. User interface. My units is set to inches. I live in New York City. We use the imperial system. I get it though, metric system. I know, I hear it all the time, and we have international users. So if you need to, you can always switch to the one you prefer. But today I will be using inches. Decimal place, I usually only work to the third decimal ever, but you can go all the way up to 5 as of the recent release of Clo 2025.1. Fun little thing. Beyond that, under our mode and toolbar section, default mode is set to simulation. By default, for everything else, everything should be preset for us. My 3D toolbar is to the left. My 2D toolbar is to the right. My render toolbar is also to the right. Group tools for me is turned off. Now, I have a rather large monitor, so I can see all of my tools. But if at some point you're like, you need to group your tools, maybe due to a smaller monitor, that is totally and completely fine. But you do need to keep in mind that some of your tools might be hiding under another tool then. If you are also a beginner, and honestly, even as an experienced user, show manual and video links from tooltips is a great thing to leave checked on. It gives you a hyperlink to the Clo manuals in case you ever forget how a tool works. For that is really all we are going to be adjusting here within our user settings. I'm going to go to the bottom right-hand corner. I'm going to click close. We're good to go. Great. We've got our settings all set up. Within navigating, I'm just going to go over a little navigation tutorial here so we know how we can actually start to move around in our space. Now, our 2D and 3D windows, they are linked. If I do something in one, like edit a pattern, it happens in both windows. But we can manually move around these two windows separately. We can zoom. And as you might have already expected, zooming is with our scroll wheel. Whichever icon or wherever your mouse is hovering over, that is where you are going to zoom for that window. We also have the ability to pan in both our 2D and 3D windows. In order to pan, instead of scrolling your mouse wheel, you actually click and hold it down. Notice how when I'm going to release, I'm going to click again with my scroll wheel. And as I click and hold, my little mouse cursor becomes a fist. And I can now actually pan and move around my 2D window, up, down, right, and left. I can do the exact same in my 3D window as well by clicking and holding my mouse wheel, and I can go up, down, right, and left. So it's really nice. We can easily start to move around. And of course, the third option to navigate in the space is to rotate. Only We can only do this in the 3D window because this is the 3D space. But if I right click and hold, I can now actually start to rotate around this space, which is really, really cool. Now, as I click and hold, I can move up, down, all around. But if you ever need kind of like a little bit of a lock guide, you're like, no, I just want to rotate really nice and horizontal. If while you're rotating, you hold shift on your keyboard, it will actually stay to the axis that you started moving in first. I can't go up and down anymore, just perfectly around the avatar, which is nice. Other really good shortcut, just in case you need it. If you're ever like, oh my God, I've zoomed out, I moved her upside down, she's hanging like a bat off the ceiling. The number 2 shortcut on your keyboard will just put your 3D scene front and center again to the avatar. Really nice, good shortcut to know just in case you ever get stuck. Or again, she's hanging upside down like a bat on the ceiling. All right. But let's actually start with actually doing something in our different windows. To start, we are using our edit pattern tool. So our edit pattern tool here is on our 2D toolbar. Looks like a solid triangle. And this allows us to select entire pattern pieces and move them around. Now, my pattern pieces are pretty much, for the most part, really nicely already arranged around this kind of shadow of our avatar, so I'm not really too concerned. But if I do want to maybe adjust the skirt so they kind of, those central fold lines are matching up, I can actually go ahead and adjust that in any way I see fit. I have a neckband up here. Maybe I want to move that more to the center of the avatar again. However you see fit to arrange and organize your 2D working space is totally fine and completely up to you. My only piece of advice is keep it organized, because future you will thank past you for keeping your 2D and 3D working spaces nice and tidy. But what I can see here is I only have half a pattern. I have half a front, I have half a back, I only have one sleeve. Kind of would like the rest of my dress pattern here. In order to do that, we can actually unfold pattern pieces. And in order to unfold our pattern pieces, we're going to switch to the tool directly below the transform pattern tool, which is our edit pattern tool. Looks kind of like a hollow triangle. And actually, I'm going to turn on an additional tool for myself so I will be able to zoom a little bit more for you guys. Let's see. There we go. Zoom too far. This tool is what we're going to be using, called the trans or edit pattern tool. And as you can get, this is what we can use to edit patterns. The difference between transform and edit is that transform will actually select entire pattern pieces. The edit pattern tool allows us to select individual segment lines or individual points, which is really nice. In this case, I want to select this center fold line. So the center front of my bodice, I have this line fully highlighted. I'm going to right click on it directly on that yellow line. I get a drop down menu with lots of different options. I'm going to scroll down a little more than halfway down and to where it says unfold symmetric editing with sewing. And I'm going to select that. What I now have is an actual full right and left side of this pattern piece. Pretty cool. You might also notice a kind of dashed line going down the middle. And while I select one side, it highlights yellow, and the other side highlights in a light blue. That means that we have applied symmetry. If I do something to the right side, it's also going to happen to our left side. Pretty neat. So kind of like you only have to do something once instead of twice like you would have to do in the real world. I'm going to go ahead and unfold some of my other additional pattern pieces. I have the skirt, the front skirt panel, again, coming down to this center fold line here, right clicking, and I'm going to choose unfold symmetric editing with sewing. Boom. I have now unfolded the front half of my skirt as well, again with symmetry. Nice thing is you might be thinking, oh my God, I have to do this for every single pattern piece. This is going to take forever if I have something complicated. No. Instead, we can actually select multiple. So if I select this back central line for the back bodice and hold shift with my keyboard, so like many other programs, if we want to select multiples, we hold shift. And I can also select this back skirt fold line. So I have these two lines selected now. As long as I right click directly on one of them, I get the same drop down menu. I'm going to again choose unfold symmetric editing with sewing. Give Chloe a second to load and boom, I have unfolded two pattern pieces at once. In fact, you could unfold all four that we've done so far all at once, which is just really, really kind of nice to do. Now, for our sleeve, we don't really unfold a sleeve. We need two sleeves. I'm going to marquee over to select my entire sleeve because again, I don't want to unfold my sleeve by unfolding off of a single segment line. I need to duplicate a mirror image version of this sleeve because sleeves are not symmetric right and left. We need, those different kind of cap and shaping areas for our arms. With my sleeve fully selected, I'm going to right click on the sleeve. You're like, oh my God, there's an even longer drop down now. Yeah, there's a lot of things we can do in Clo. But I'm going to come to here. Let's zoom in there so we see a little closer. Underneath where it says clone pattern with linked editing, the very first option below, symmetric pattern with sewing. The shortcut is Control D. I always like to think of D for duplicate because what are we going to do? We're going to duplicate our sleeve. Do that one more time. Again, selecting my entire sleeve pattern, right clicking on it, and underneath where it says clone pattern with linked editing, I know it's kind of like a light gray. It can be a little hard to see. Sorry about that, guys. But again, where it says that, I'm going to choose symmetric pattern, parentheses, with sewing. And again, it says what that shortcut is to the right-hand side, so always good to see. Control D. Chloe's going to give me this yellow outline now of the sleeve, and I'm going to place it over to the left-hand side. I'm like, great, cool. I've got a right and a left sleeve, and it's the perfect mirror image. Another really nice thing Chloe has done for me here is you can see this blue glow around my pattern pieces, as well as this kind of blue line connecting these two pattern pieces. This is, again, also giving us that symmetry, similar to how we had the half symmetry. But this means that if I edit one sleeve, the other sleeve is going to do the exact equal edits. Again, really good to know that you can actually only have to edit one side of your pattern, and it does both sides like magic. Perfect. Okay, we've got our pattern pieces. They're looking pretty good in 2D. They're looking good in 3D. Of course, now if I turn on simulation or gravity, these pattern pieces are just going to fall straight to the ground because again, there's nothing holding them together. In fact, let's just do a fun little thing. If I jump over to this window, don't worry, you guys don't need to do it. You can watch my screen for a second. If I turn on gravity, there went my pattern pieces. And I'm like, oh shucks, that's absolutely no good. I'm just going to Control Z and undo to get those back up in the air. Perfect. And now what I can do is I want to arrange these pattern pieces around my avatar. I'm like, oh, well, that's going to might be a little tricky. I mean, you got to go to the front, you got to go to the back. You're going to have to drag pieces all over the place. Again, it's actually pretty easy to do. Something I like to do is to first select all of my pattern pieces. I am going to select them all in 2D or in 3D. Again, I did it by just simply clicking and dragging a marquee box around my pattern pieces here in the 2D window. And we can, again, 2D and 3D windows, they are linked. They are always working together. So they're all selected in 2D. They're all selected in 3D. And I get this kind of crazy looking ball thing. It's called a gizmo. And this gizmo allows me to drag or rotate pattern pieces in the 3D window. For this, I am going to hover over that green vertical arrow or our y-axis, and I'm going to drag my pieces up and above my avatar, giving me a really nice clear view to my avatar. And we'll see why I want a clear view in a second. One thing I almost forgot to talk about is if your gizmo looks a little different than mine, that is okay. There's a few different versions of a gizmo within Clo. I prefer to use the World gizmo. It's also very good for beginners. And if you would like to change yours, in the 3D window, if you kind of right click in the gray space, you can come down to this option here called Gizmo and select World Coordinate. So again, you have different options. You can use World, there's Screen, and there's Local, but I'm a big fan of World. Amazing. All right. So got some pattern pieces. They're floating above my avatar. How do I start actually arranging these to start looking like a dress? For that, we're going to use something called arrangement points. Now, arrangement points can be turned on and off in our 3D vertical toggle. Now, there is an entire tutorial about the vertical toggle on our YouTube. I was actually the one who recorded it, I think like a year ago. And Jim, our friendly moderator, if he could actually put in a link to that, that would be super appreciated, just in case anybody is curious. But we are going to go to our avatar toggle. So it's the 5th icon down in that line. And just the important thing to note with these toggles, they are visual toggles. They're things that we can turn on and off. Oh, I'm so glad you are enjoying my proper terms. That's always nice to hear. So within our avatar display here, a lot of different things that we can turn on, like show avatar. We could actually hide our avatar and turn her back on. We'll know which ones are on or off just by those little blue check marks. Ooh, let me go back. What we want to turn on is this second option down underneath our avatar display, show arrangement points. Now, they are called arrangement points, but the improper term I do like to call them is Clo chicken pox. And the reason I call them chicken pox, I mean, we all need that chicken pox immunity, but as soon as we're done with them, we want to make sure we get rid of them. All right, perfect. We have our blue dots. Now you're like, well, what the heck do I do with these blue dots? I'm going to go back to my 2D window. And on my toolbar, I always like to switch back to my transform pattern tool. Again, that is because transform pattern selects entire pattern pieces. And I'm going to select my front bodice. Now with the front bodice selected, again, it is selected. We can see if I zoom out, it is selected in 3D and in 2D. I'm going to take my mouse and I'm going to hover over these blue dots. I'm not clicking on them yet. I'm just hovering over. And as I hover over these blue dots, I can see the outline of my pattern piece. And this is giving me a good idea of where it is going to actually be arranged to. I want to kind of find the best, closest in the ballpark area for this to be arranged on. In this case, this dot here, right below my avatar's bust at the center, it looks pretty good. It's not perfect, but that's okay, because again, general space. I'm going to left click on the blue dot. That dot highlights yellow, and the pattern piece is now wrapping around my avatar. Nice. I'm going to go ahead and select my skirt next. When I select my skirt pattern piece, I'm then again, I'm not dragging the pattern piece over to the other window. I'm just clicking on it. See, no hands, moving my mouse, not holding it down. I've seen this happen a lot. And I'm going to take my cursor over to the 3D window, and I'm going to hover again over those different dots to find the best possible option. In this case, this dot right at the center front, in between the avatar's legs, is looking pretty good for the skirt. Single click. Avatar is now, not the avatar, the pattern piece is wrapping around my avatar's waist. Perfect. I'm going to rotate my point of view now a little for my sleeve. Now, with sleeves, I always tell people to be extra careful. You want to make sure you put the right sleeve on the right arm and the left sleeve on the left arm. I see a lot of people get them on the opposite side, so always being careful. I'm going to select this sleeve to my right, and I'm going to hover over the dot to my right side of the avatar. Talk about how I'm looking at the avatar. As I hover over this blue dot, I'm selecting the dot right at the top of her arm on her bicep, not the front, not the back, the very top, because again, this pattern piece is wrapping around and focusing on the center. So center of the sleeve to the top of the arm. Single left click, that sleeve pops on. But what's also really nice, the sleeve also pops onto the other arm because again, we have symmetry. If we do something to one side, it does it to the other. One of my favorite things in Clo, really, symmetry makes my life so much easier. Now I'm going to right click in the 3D window and hold, giving me the ability to rotate around in my 3D space till I get to the back of my avatar. Remember though, it's a right click and hold to rotate. I'm going to go ahead now and I'm going to do the back of my bodice. Back of the bodice, selected in 2D. And now I'm going to hover over these different blue dots to find the best option. This one, basically right at the center back, up and down, right and left centers, looks pretty good to me. So I'm going to left click and place. Beautiful. Exact same with my skirt. I'm selecting the skirt in my 2D window. I am moving my cursor over to the left-hand side, and this one right under her derriere, her behind. Right there, I'm going to click to place my pattern piece. Again, it's not perfect. It's clipping through her a little bit, but that's okay because again, once we turn on simulation, it'll be fine. All right, I'm going to go back to the center front view of my avatar. I can either do that again by right-clicking and holding and rotating, or if you remember, that shortcut number 2 on your keyboard will bring your avatar front and center. We have one last pattern piece to place, and that is our neckband. So I'm selecting my neckband in 2D. Now this neck, I'm not going to place it at the center front. Neckbands are often sewn actually around the shoulder seam. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to place it to my right-hand side of the avatar's neck. Click and done. So it's kind of wrapping around the actual avatar's neck right there for us. Perfect. I'm going to just, again, take a kind of a slow rotation around my avatar. Be like, okay, this is looking pretty good. I'm pretty happy with the overall placement of all of my pattern pieces on my avatar. Great. What did I call these arrangement points? Chicken pox. We have our immunity. We've arranged our pattern pieces. We don't need them anymore because it's really easy to accidentally click on one of them and suddenly you've got a sleeve on your ankle. No good. I'm going to go back to my 3D vertical toggle, the avatar display, show arrangement points, the second option down, and click to turn them off. Once we're done with them, we don't need them anymore. All right, so hopefully everybody was able to arrange their pattern pieces nice around our avatar. Looking pretty good. Because what we are ready to do now is sew. In Clo, we have our sewing tools, and pretty unsurprisingly, they do look like little sewing machines. And there are 3 main tools that we use for sewing. This very top one is our edit sewing tool. This one allows us to edit, delete, alter, change sewing once it's in place. The next option below, the second one down, is segment sewing. It allows us to sew between 2 points. And the third one is free sewing. And this one allows us to say where to start and where to end. And we're going to use both of them today. Now, I always like to start with segment sewing, kind of like the fastest. Segment sewing, there's going to be a total of 2 clicks. So we're going to go ahead and start to sew some of our easier things together first. Again, I've selected my segment sewing tool. Shortcut, if we see on that pop out, is N. Excuse me. And I'm going to come and I'm going to sew my skirt side seams together first. They're really nice. They're pretty easy. So I'm going to hover over this skirt seam here, or the side seam of the skirt. And notice how as I move my cursor, We have a notch that appears towards the bottom if my cursor is closer to the bottom. If I move it up towards the top, the notch moves up towards the top. What I always like to think of is this is kind of the direction of our sewing. Now, in Clo, we could sew it forwards to backwards, top to bottom, bottom to top. The key, the most important thing is the notches should match. They should both be at the top or they should both be at the bottom. Otherwise, we end up with a twist. So I'm going to come here to my skirt side seam and I'm going to do notch towards the top, click, and I've set my first half of the sewing. Now I need to tell Clo, where is this being sewn to? I'm going to go to that side seam of the back half of the skirt. Again, notch towards the top and click. And what's nice is this is interactive again, 2D to 3D. If I look in my 3D window, I can actually see the sewing coming nice and straight across the side seam. Now, their pattern pieces are overlapping a little, but I promise you that's going to be okay. All right, let's go ahead and sew some of the other items together. Maybe next, I want to sew my shoulder seams. They're nice straight seams straight across. I'm going to sew my front shoulder and to my right side, notch coming towards the avatar's neckline. Click. I'm then going to go on over to the back shoulder. And for this one, let's get a nice view on that. Again, the notch is going towards the neckline because again, we're going from the front to the back of the avatar and click. And I can always, what's really nice is look at my sewing in real time in the 3D window too. Again, looking at the shoulder sewing, so many S's, shoulder sewing, I see that the front and the back are clearly being sewn together and they're going straight across. I've definitely accidentally sewn like the right front to the left back, and you'll end up actually seeing almost like an X or a crisscross on the sewing. You're like, oh, I've done that wrong. You can always undo to fix that. All right, let's go ahead and actually sew our sleeve. So our sleeve side seam, we're going to sew the far right and left sides. Now, I'm telling you ahead of time, I'm going to do it wrong. I'm going to do it wrong so we can see how to correct it. I'm going to sew the left side of my sleeve underarm, notch towards the top, to the opposite side of the underarm, but notch to the bottom. Right away, I can see on the sleeve, instead of getting two straight parallel lines, I'm actually getting a bit of an X pattern, and I'm like, uh-oh, something might have gone wrong here. And when I look underneath my avatar's arm, I also see, uh-oh, those sewing lines aren't really nice and pretty and straight anymore. I think I've done something wrong. Again, totally okay. It's not like, it's 3 a.m. and we have to sew the whole dress together and we're ripping out stitches under our desks. We have quick and easy tools to fix that. And that is going to be our edit sewing tool. When I select my edit sewing, I can click to select the sewing I want to edit. And with this drop down menu, I can see some different options. Now, I could choose to just delete it and add it back in, but actually the sewing's in the right place. It's just one side's wrong. So instead, what I can choose, reverse sewing. And if I choose reverse sewing, Clo flipped one of the notches on one side so they match now. It's like magic. Honestly, it's like magic. I love it. I love symmetry and sewing in Clo so much, guys. I'm a huge fan, big fan. So perfect. I was able to quickly correct some of my sewing. I love it. Great. Super easy. So nice. All right. I'm going to jump right back into segment sewing. This time I'm going to sew the bottom of my bodice to the top of the skirt. Again, we're making a dress, so you kind of want the skirt to be sewn to the top. For that, I'm going to again sew the bottom of my bodice, notch towards the left, click to the top of the skirt, notch towards the left click. Again, we have symmetry. So when I sewed one side of the front skirt, It also sewed the other side. Really nice. Let's go ahead and also do the back. So again, I'm sewing the bottom of my bodice, notch towards the left. I always just like to do notch to the left, left to right. And I'm going to sew that to the top of the skirt directly below. Again, notch towards the left. Single click, boom, it is sewn on. Exactly. It is super duper useful. Symmetry, love it. Oh my gosh. Perfect. All right, looking pretty good here. Sewing's looking pretty good. Still need to do my side seams and my collar. Still lots and lots of things to do, but we're working our way through. Okay, next, we could sew on our sleeves. Sewing on our caps to the armholes. Now we have a nice notch here. So for this, we're going to actually be able to use where we have that notch. And again, always important, we're going to need to watch our notches, especially when we're sewing armholes. So here we go. I'm sewing the front of my sleeve cap with the notch coming towards the left. And I'm going to sew that to my front armhole, notch going towards the bottom. Because we want to keep in mind that this section here is going to be sewn to that underarm / where it meets the side seam. And click. Again, I'm also always watching my 3D window at the exact same time, perpetually watching 2D, 3D, 3D, 2D, always trying to make sure that I didn't make a user error. Because guys, doesn't matter how long you've been working this program, human error is inevitable, but it's okay because we can fix it. All right, I'm going to rotate around to the back so I'm seeing that. And now I'm going to sew the back half of my cap to my back armhole. So again, I'm going to sew with my notch going towards the bottom here on my sleeve cap to my back armhole, notch towards the bottom. Perfect. All right. Okay, we have our sleeves attached. Now we need to do our side seam. Now with our side seam, I can see that there is actually a segment point breaking up my waist. And I'm thinking, gosh, wouldn't it be really nice if I could just sew my side seams in one straight line? Just like how in real life, I put this through the machine, the whole side seam at once. We can actually now switch from segment sewing to free sewing. So I'm selecting that free sewing tool right here. It's the third sewing machine down for your sewing tools. And this one is a little different. Instead of a total of 2 clicks to set one sewing thing to another sewing thing, we have to do a start and an end to a start and an end. So it's going to be a total of 4 clicks. Doing a lot of numbers with my hands today. And I like to work top to bottom. So at the front of my bodice, front bodice, at the side seam, I'm going to click once at the top of the side seam. And now I'm not clicking and holding again. I just clicked once, no hands. And I'm going to hover my cursor down, 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 down. Again, what's nice is it's going to come to this notch. I am not clicking on it. I'm simply letting my cursor move past it. Because again, it's free sewing. We decide where we start and where we end. I'm going to come all the way down till I get to the bottom of the side seam and click. Perfect. I've set the front side seam. What I want to do now is come to the back bodice and follow that same direction. So I'm going to click at this top portion and I'm going to bring my mouse down, 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 down. I can actually see those sewing lines coming across the pattern pieces. And again, I'm going to jump over that segment point. I can just keep my cursor moving down, 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 down till I get to the bottom side seam and click. So again, click to start, click to end, click to start, click to end. 4 clicks total. And once we've done that, we're good with our side seams. And again, because we have symmetry, both the right and the left seams are sewn together as well. All right, so hopefully everybody's doing good so far. What we have left is our neckband. Now our neckband, we're going to do something new. I know, another new thing. Oh my. But the thing we want to do with our neckband is we want to sew it all in one go, the front and the back all at once. So we want to sew one neckband to the front and back bodice at the same time. And in order to do that, we are going to do something called one to multiple sewing. Now I'm going to still use my free sewing tool. So we're still using free sewing. Now, I said one to multiples, which means I usually probably want to do my one first. And I'm going to sew my neckband from the bottom left all the way. Don't click accidentally. So bottom left corner all the way to the bottom right hand corner. And also, don't worry, I'm going to do this at least 2 more times. Click. Perfect. I've set my one. It's good. It's beautiful. I'm now going to hold shift on my keyboard. You'll notice that when I hold shift, that sewing kind of turned from one color to bright or front to a bright neon green. This is me telling Chloe, hey, I'm about to sew this thing, this one, to multiple things. Don't stop sewing till I tell you to. The key here is you have to keep your finger super glued to your keyboard, to the shift button. I'm not going to let it go. Right now, my left hand, it is super glued to my shift key. I'm going to go to the upper left-hand high point shoulder of my neck here, and I'm going to click once, and I'm going to start to hover around. You'll see that bright green sewing appear, and I'm going to come all the way around the neckband until I get to the opposite front side of the neckband. And I'm going to click. I'm still holding shift though. I'm still holding shift. And I'm going to use my middle cursor, my middle scroll wheel to pan over to my back neck. And right where this shoulder is sewn to the opposite shoulder, I'm going to click, hovering, 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 hovering. And I'm going to go all the way to the across the back neck as well. I'm going to click. I'm now going to release my shift because I'm done sewing my multiples. And I can see there that the front and back neckband are sewn together. Amazing. Now I'm going to do Control Z or undo and do that again so everybody can see one more time. So for this again, let's see if I can get a nice view to keep it all on one screen there. I'm going to sew from the bottom left corner of my neckband. Click, hovering, 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 till I get to the bottom right corner, and I'm going to click. I've set my one. Holding shift, the sewing turns bright green. I know I've activated multiple sewing. Now I want this side of the neckband to be sewn to kind of right where this shoulder is coming together. That's why I'm starting right there. And I'm going to click right at this point on where the neck and the shoulder meet. And I'm hovering, 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 and I'm going to go across the entire front of my neckband. Again, what's nice is if you look at my 3D screen at the same time, we can see that sewing just moving across the neckband. Beautiful. And I'm going to click. This click just lets Chloe know that I'm ready to move to the next area of sewing. I'm going to move my cursor over to the back neck area, click, and I'm going to again hover, 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 till I get to the right-hand side, click, and now I can release my shift. Perfect. All right, looks like I got all my sewing, or at least I think so. One thing I do is I will always, and this doesn't matter if it's simple or complicated garment, I always do one nice rotation around my avatar to make sure I didn't make any mistakes, to make sure I didn't miss anything. I'm seeing lots of sewing and I can see I definitely forgot something. I forgot to sew the far ends of my neckband. Go figure. Right here I can see I did not sew the ends of my neckband together. But that's okay because I can just simply now take my segment sewing tool, zoom into my neckband right here in 2D, and I'm going to sew the far side of the neckband, notch going towards the top, to the opposite far side of the neckband, notch going towards the top. Looks good. Perfect. I love it. All right. I think I've gotten all my sewing. In the 3D window, I'm going to switch my tool back to this select move tool. Kind of looks like a little crosshair or a plus icon. And I can now turn simulation or gravity on. Now, this button here is our simulation button. This is what will turn on gravity. I have the option to click this or use my space bar. Now, as you start to use Clo more, using your shortcuts on the keyboard can be extremely helpful. So this is one I highly recommend memorizing is the space bar. So I'm going to go ahead and press the space bar, and Clo is going to actually now zoop and sew everything together. Looks pretty good. And also it's nice, you'll see my cursor while simulation is turned on or gravity. My cursor is a little hand. It's kind of fun because now I can actually pick up the fabric and see all of that coming together. So kind of a fun little thing. I can, pinch as one does. So if anything ended up a little clumped together, I can always give it a little tug. And when I don't need simulation to be turned on anymore, I can simply press my space bar or click that downward arrow again. And it will turn simulation off. And so my garment will not kind of wiggle around in my 3D window at the moment. One new thing in Clo, always good to be aware of, is if you are on a PC, there are now 2 types of simulation available to you. Sorry, Max, not yet, but hopefully in the future. If I click and I hold down on this blue, on the downwards simulation arrow, you'll see that we have 3 types of fitting: normal, fitting accurate, and animation. Now, normal is the one you're going to work in most often. It's great for building and working quickly. Fitting accurate, you wouldn't need this until you get to those fitting stages of something where you might be actually fitting using proper fabrics and actually probably intending to print your pattern out to make it in the real world. And finally, animation stable, which you would only use with animation. Now, there are 2 types, though, of simulation: CPU and GPU. Very quick overview of CPU versus GPU. And again, you'll only see this if you're on a PC with an NVIDIA graphics card. CPU is best for accuracy and fitting. GPU is great for working quickly while you're building. So for me, for right now, I'm actually going to switch to GPU. You'll see that my cursor, or the arrow next to my cursor here, is now a hollow arrow instead of an actual solid arrow. So really nice, just a visual way to know which type of simulation I am using. And again, if you don't have it, that is completely and totally fine, guys. Don't worry about it. But it is nice to have there if it's an option, because it just lets me work even quicker, especially as you kind of practice Clo more and start making more and more complex garments with more and more pattern pieces. It can be nice to work quickly, and then you can always switch back for accuracy and fitting later on. Okay, guys, we have our garment. We have her sewn together. What are we doing next? Well, a good next step is to actually apply a real fabric. Now, currently, if I come over to the right-hand side, my object browser is kind of like a BOM, a bill of materials. And this is going to show me lots of different tabs for different things: fabrics, graphics, buttons, buttonholes, top stitching, puckering, trims, zippers, grading. I mean, there's a lot up here. But right now, we're going to work in this first tab called fabrics. It's kind of like the default one you're in the most often too. And I'm currently in using Fabric 1. I like to think of Fabric 1, or Clo's default fabric, as digital muslin. Great for building, but it couldn't really exist in the real world. It's kind of like a knit and a woven all at once. It's digital muslin. Great for building, not great for fitting. Now, with that, I'm like, all right, well, I guess I should probably go and, add a real fabric. I'm going to press Y on my keyboard to open up the Clo library. Again, you can always also click the button on the upper right-hand side, kind of like that teal blue color. And I'm going to go to the Clo tab. So this is the most far left tab from all the tabs at the top. And I'm going to go to fabric. You're like, oh my God, there are so many fabrics here. Now, guys, when I started at Clo over 5 years ago, there were like 70 fabrics in this library. There's like 300-400 and CloFab now. So there is Sky's the limit when it comes to fabric. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come to the search bar because, well, I don't want to have to scroll here for days. Let's go straight into my search bar and I'm going to type in jersey and hit enter. What happens is Chloe is going to search through the library to find any and all fabrics that match the word I've just typed in. I'm like, oh, look at all of these different jerseys I have to choose from. This is great. Now, one thing I do stress is don't worry so much about the color of the fabric. That can be changed. What you want to look at is more its material. So I'm going to click on this light pink cut and sew knit matte jersey. Could be what I want. And at the upper right-hand corner, there is a show preview icon, kind of like a little italic eye. And this is going to give us a close-up of the print repeat. It's also going to give you a lot of information about your fabric. So I can see it's an ITY matte jersey. It's a poly spandex elastane. I can see its weight, its thickness. I'm like, you know what? I think this is a pretty good one to use. I'm going to use it. Now, again, you might need to double click on it to download it. Flow does not by default download multiple hundreds of fabrics to your computer. So you might, if you see that little white dot, need to double click to download it. I'm going to take this fabric, I'm going to drag it across my screen, and I'm going to drop it into my object browser. And I can see here it's been added. Perfect. I'm going to close my library. And now I'm going to actually go ahead and assign these different pattern pieces to the fabric. I am on my transform pattern tool still. I'm going to select both my sleeves. I'm going to select the front bodice, the front skirt. Again, I'm holding shift to select multiples. I'm going to select the back bodice and I'm going to select the back skirt. I'm basically selecting everything except the neckband. We're going to make a rib neckband. Now, once I've selected these pattern pieces, you will see this little white button has appeared. This is called the assign button. So it looks like a little white square with a downwards pointed arrow. And if I hover over it, we'll actually see the name of it, assign to selected patterns. What will you have done? We selected some patterns. Let's click assign. Amazing. All of my pattern pieces that were selected are assigned to the new fabric. One of the fun things is if I turn simulation on by selecting my space bar and turn gravity on, we can actually see how the drape has also slightly changed now because it has a real fabric applied. You're like, oh, well, that's kind of cool. Great. All right. We have assigned a fabric. We still want to assign one more material, and that's going to be the rib. I'm going to press Y again to open my library. I'm going to go to the search bar. This time, I'm going to type a rib and press enter. I can see several different types of rib. Again, don't worry about the color. We're going to change it. It's mostly about selecting the right properties. And I'm going to select this. Let's see, which one are we feeling? Yeah, I'm going to go with this orange, or no, I'll go with this tealy colored rib right here. So it's a cotton tencel. Great. Now I can drag and drop it into my object browser again, but I'm only assigning it to one pattern piece. So I'm going to click, I'm going to drag it, and this time I'm going to drop it directly on top of the pattern piece, directly on top of my neckband. And what happens? Chloe will instantly assign that fabric to the rib or to the neckband. And you'll also see it's right there in our object browser for use. You're like, oh, well, great. That was really easy. Perfect. Again, just another way to do something in Cloud because, again, many ways to eat a kiwi. There's many ways to do things in Cloud. Right, I'm going to press Y to close my library. And we can start to see our garment coming to life. It's kind of like a watermelon kind of color combo right now, but we're going to be able to change that. So not to worry. Let's add in, actually, let's actually, before we go into adjusting our prints and our colors, let's make a couple of quick edits because again, oh, I'm so sorry, guys. It is nice to be able to edit and alter things about your pattern if you need to. we're going to change from our transform pattern tool to our edit pattern tool because guess what? We are going to edit. Yes. Oh, there's a transparent effect through. Yes. So this material here does have a slight bit of transparency. What we can do is we can turn on and off at the very top of our 3D vertical toggle. Whoop, sorry. Quality render. And quality render will allow us to actually change and view our transparencies a little bit better. So it is still slightly transparent, but it doesn't have that kind of weird pixely look that you might be seeing. So we can actually go ahead and see that a little nicer. And I'll actually, when we get to our property editor for our fabric, I'll show you guys also, if I remember, I hope I do, how to actually also delete transparency if you ever need to. If you're like, no, my material is completely opaque. All right, but I'm going to jump back to my edit pattern tool. And we're just going to make one or two quick little edits. And one is we're like, hey, maybe we want to actually lengthen our skirt a little. We're like, I think she needs like another inch of length. I'm going to select the edge or the hem of my skirt. So this is just the front skirt. I'm going to right click for some options. And I'm going to choose offset pattern outline. So key is you want to choose offset pattern outline because again, we're going to offset the pattern to lengthen it. Offset pattern outline. We can choose what options we want. So direction, extend. We're not shortening it, we're extending. Distance. I'm going to type in 1 inch. Now, one also just a fun little side note. If you ever see a measurement box like this where you're changing anything like a distance, you can also right click to get a calculator. Just a fun little side tip. So again, I'm only extending it by 1 inch. In fact, what's nice is at the exact same time below here, I can actually see Chloe offsetting my pattern already. I'm like, oh, well, that's great. Perfect. And at the very bottom, I can click OK. And right there, I see Chloe's offset the front pattern. So they're not matching up right now because, again, I did lengthen this by 1 inch. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to do the exact same thing for the back. I'm going to select the back hem, right click, offset pattern outline. Again, we want to offset the pattern outline. Chloe actually remembers the previous distance we just did, so it's really nice. You're like, nope, just want to offset 1 inch one time. Again, click OK. And there we go. We have offset our front and our back. Now, one thing to pay attention to is we have offset our pattern. Chloe has left this kind of handy purple line here for us. It's just a reference for where our original pattern piece was. It's a baseline. We don't need to worry about it too much. We can, in fact, hide them using our vertical toggle menu. But for now, the one thing you might notice is, oh, my hem's not sewn together anymore. Like, well, I lengthened the pattern, but Chloe didn't lengthen my sewing. Now, nice thing is we don't have to sew our skirt back together and we don't have to delete it and sew it again. What we can do is take our edit sewing tool. I'm going to zoom into my side seam. I'm going to click my sewing and I'm going to drag it to be longer. Pretty nice. And I'm going to do the same for the back side seam of the skirt. Click, drag to make it longer. Amazing. I didn't have to delete my sewing. I didn't have to change anything up. I was just able to lengthen it. Amazing. I love that. Okay. We're going to do one more fun little thing with this skirt. And I think this could really use a patch pocket. Something fun. I mean, honestly, everything should have pockets. Dresses, skirts, pants, tops, bottoms, everything should have at least a pocket. So we're going to add a cute little patch pocket to our dress. Now, in order to make a brand new pattern piece, we're going to want to use our polygon tool. And something to see is, if you notice, this tool here actually has this kind of like little triangle at the lower right-hand corner. And if we ever see that, it means that a tool has additional options underneath it. If we want to reveal those, we can click and hold, and we'll see a little drop down option appear. And I can see I can make polygons, which is just kind of any kind of custom shape, a rectangle, ellipse, or a spiral. In this case, well, a rectangle is pretty close to a pocket shape, so I think I'm going to go with a rectangle. I'm going to select that. Now I can click and I can drag to make any type of kind of square shape I want. Or what's really nice is if I left click in the gray space, I get what's called a precision box, and I can tell Chloe what is the exact size of this pocket I want. So I'm going to just make a nice little 4 by 4 inch pocket, just a perfect square. So again, width is 4 inches, height is 4 inches. I can actually see the outline of the pattern piece appearing right here. Click OK. I got a pocket bag. Perfect. Now, it did use my rib fabric, which I'm like, no, I didn't want it to use the rib. Now, what's really nice is we can remember with that pattern piece selected, I can come over to my fabrics tab in the object browser, click assign next to the pink fabric, and reassign it to our matching jersey. Perfect. Like, all right, great, done. Reassigned that material really, really fast. Okay, well, how do I get this pocket onto my dress? There's nowhere for me to sew it to. Let's switch back to our edit pattern tool. Now, the last thing I would want to have to do is try to draw on that square shape onto my pattern. What I can instead do is right click directly on that pocket. So I'm going to make sure that the full pocket is highlighted. Right click on the yellow that's highlighted. And I'm going to choose clone as internal shape because we basically want to mark out our pocket bag for our dress. So clone as internal shape. And I'm going to place this about where I want it to go on my dress. Now, I don't have to place it perfectly because, again, it's Chloe. We can edit it later, but I'll get it kind of like in the general ballpark. Click to place. I think I might have made that pocket a little too big. That's okay for today. Now, if I'm like, this looks a little high, I can double click this internal line to have it fully selected and maybe move it down a little bit. There we go. And again, just wherever you feel is looking pretty good, that's okay. Perfect. So I have my pocket bag marked out. Again, because we have symmetry, we're seeing it on both sides. So don't worry. We're only going to add one pocket though. I'm going to use my free sewing to sew this pocket bag onto the dress. I'm going to start at the upper left-hand corner of my pocket. And I'm going to go counterclockwise. I'm going to go down, around the bottom, and up to the top. Again, a click to start. And when I get to the upper right-hand corner, a click to end. So I've set the sewing around my pocket bag. I don't want to sew the top because it should be a functional pocket bag. We definitely want it to open. And now I'm going to go to the lines that I added to the front of my bodice. Upper left-hand corner, following that exact same path. Click, left click, going down, across the bottom, back up to the top, and click. Perfect. I can see all of those sewing lines in my 3D window are appearing, which is really nice. Now, one thing I can actually do is I could press spacebar and just kind of let this pocket bag fly across my screen. But instead, what I'm going to do is go back to my select/move tool. I'm going to click on the pocket bag in 3D, right click on it for a drop down menu. And I'm going to choose superimpose over. And what superimpose does is it's going to follow the sewing lines just to match where it needs to. So I'm telling the pocket to follow the sewing lines to be over the main portion of the dress. There are also options for superimpose under. So if it was like an interior, like a lining, or superimpose side if something was coming together edge to edge. Superimpose over, the pocket bag is going to snap on top of the dress. I'm going to turn on simulation. And what I have now is actually a functional opening or a pocket. Perfect. Not half bad. All right, I'm here for it. So it's really nice. We were able to quickly add in our pocket bag right there. Now, if we do, if for any reason you're like, oh God, that other square is just so like, I don't want to see it, like, I don't need it anymore, the one that's being unused, we can double click on the pocket bag or the square for the unused, we can click on the internal lines for the unused square, right click directly on it. We can remove linked editing from only these internal lines. That's it. We're only removing linked editing from these internal lines. Remove it. You'll notice how they're not linked to anymore. If I select one, the other one isn't selected. And I can just hit backspace or delete on my keyboard. The pattern is keeping its overall linking for the edges, but those internal lines don't need them anymore, which is really, really, really nice. All right. Okay, let's go ahead and let's change this color now. Maybe we actually want not pink or not this green neckband. I mean, the world's your oyster. Who am I to judge? But let's go ahead and maybe change these colors. I'm going to go to my main fabric here in my object browser, and I'm going to come down to our property editor. Now, this is where everything about whatever I've just clicked on lives. So because I clicked on my pink jersey fabric, my property editor is showing me everything and anything about my matte jersey. I have an information section, again, a name, number, construction. This is all completely customizable. We come down here now, material. This section here is all about the visuals. It is not going to change anything about the physical properties of the fabric, just the visuals. There's a front, a back, and a side tab. Now, the back and side tabs will be grayed out because by default, they will just do whatever the front is. Now, if you ever have a two-sided material, you can uncheck them and then completely customize them. But for today, we're going to keep it as one thing for front, side, and back. We can change its type. So right now it is set to a matte, which probably is what I'm going to use, but just as an example that we can quickly change a visual property without changing a physical, I'm going to change this to metal. And now I have a very shiny metallic metal, almost like plastic wet looking dress. I'm going to go right back to matte. I didn't want to do that, but just to show we've changed it visually, but nothing else has changed. I'm going to go back to matte, and it's a nice matte jersey dress. Below there, we have our base color map, and that is that kind of pink texture. So when this fabric was scanned, a nice like kind of seamless repeat of a pink material. We can actually then choose to desaturate or color switch if we want to keep this kind of overall heathered texture. So I'm going to go to color switch, and Chloe is going to kind of pull out that color, but you can actually see how it's left that kind of heathering texture below, but it pulled the pink out. Perfect. Because what I can do now is next to where it says color, right above, none, because no color is applied, I can click this white box. This opens up the color library in Chloe. We have hue and gradient sliders, kind of a basic custom color box. But on the right-hand side, we actually have a full Pantone library. The number 1 is a YKK for zippers. Number 2 is a Coloro color library. And finally, there is a plus icon where you can actually add in your own custom color palettes. For today, though, let's stick with Pantone. Now, I could scroll through here. There's so many Pantone libraries. Or instead, I could always come to this bottom search bar and type in. So if I knew a Pantone number or color, I could find it. I'm just going to type in green. We'll see what we get. Keep it simple. And every color that has the name green has just populated here. If I click on one of these colors, we can see Chloe will instantly apply that color to the material or our fabric. Well, this is kind of fun. I'll go with kind of like a foresty green dress. And at the bottom, I can click apply and close. And right there, I now have this kind of nice green colored dress. Perfect. Good start. I'll change the rib in a second as well. Below that, we have a normal map. This is going to add in additional kind of that texture or that knit or weave to our material, and we can actually increase or decrease its intensity if we want. I love to increase the intensity on my normal maps and really make it feel like much more touchable. We also have displacement maps. Now, displacement maps are a little more advanced. They go into how you can actually displace geometry, especially important with things like lace or materials that have a lot of highs and lows to them. Jim, if you could actually add in your absolutely amazing tutorial that Jim made that dives into materials and maps, it's a great tutorial to learn about these in an advanced way. But today we're just going to leave it as is. There is opacity sliders, which do an overall opacity. And what I had mentioned earlier, there is also an opacity map. Now, if you're like, I really don't like this little bit of sheerness to my material, you can actually just click the trash can icon. It will completely remove that opacity map. And now my fabric is actually completely opaque. So if you don't want it, you can adjust that. There is also, again, reflection and metalness maps that can be added, but don't worry about that for today. Finally, at the very bottom, there is physical properties. And what I usually say is don't touch the physical properties. This is a digitized real world material. We will leave that alone. All right, let's go ahead and we're going to do that one more time, but this time with our rib. So I can click the rib material right here, again, in my object browser and zoom into it. Again, property editor. We have our materials section. This was, again, it was kind of scanned in as like a little foamy green. I'm going to go again to color switch to pull that color out. And then I'm going to click on this white color box to open up my color library again so I can assign a new color. I can, of course, use the search bar, or I can actually, what's fun is this does happen live, which I really like. So I can actually select a color and just see what I like or don't like right off the bat. Yeah, I kind of actually liking this kind of like tan color with as the neckband, something contrasty. Now that I have that applied, good, I'm done. Great. I'm going to hit apply and close at the very bottom. And we've added in a colorway. Perfect. I'm actually pretty overall pleased with that. Now, you're like, but oh, I thought we were going to cover prints. And well, actually, let's add a graphic and then we'll talk about a print. Perfect. Now, if we want to add in a graphic into Clo, in order to add a graphic, we can always jump to our graphics tab. So it's right next to our fabric tab in the object browser. It looks kind of like a little checkerboard or chessboard, depending on which of those versions you prefer. But we already have a graphic also included in the training folder that we all downloaded. I'm going to open my Clo library, again, by clicking this button or the Y shortcut. And I'm going to go back to my Clo Live tab. Perfect. I want to add in this little abstract sunset graphic, and I want to put it on my pocket. I'm going to take this graphic. I'm going to drag it. Now I could drop it into the object browser. What's nice is I can also drop it right onto the pattern piece that I'm, oh, nope, don't do that. I lied. Ignore me. I did the wrong, but that's okay. Don't do that. Otherwise it thinks it's a texture for a fabric. I don't know why I did that. Again, we're going to take our abstract. We're going to drag it into our object browser underneath, again, that graphics tab and click to place. Now we have the graphic. I just closed my library by pressing Y. We have the graphic here, and Clo knows it's in the graphics tab, so it knows it's a graphic. I'm going to drag my graphic, and now I'm going to drop it onto my pocket bag. Once I drag and drop, it's going to just kind of place itself. What's nice is you can see next to my cursor, there's a little t-shirt icon. So Chloe knows right now I'm using the graphics tool, which is great. And if I select the graphic, I get a bounding wheel. And at the different 45-degree angles of this, I can now scale this graphic or drag to actually move it around because I'd like it to actually, again, fit into the size that my little pocket bag is. Perfect. And I can see right here in my window, I've added on that little graphic and it's fitting really nicely onto my pattern piece or my pocket bag. Perfect. Let's go ahead and add one more graphic. I'm going to press Y to open my library. And this time I'm going to add this Clo tag because, every garment should have a nice little label on the inside. So I'm going to add this PNG graphic. Again, it is important for graphics that you do use PNG. So you have that kind of transparent bounding box around it. I'm going to drag it. I'm going to drop it. Perfect. And now I'm going to place it. Now for this graphic, I want to place it at the center back of my bodice right under the neckline. I'm going to take this, drag it across my screen, and drop it about where I want it. I'm like, I don't really want that to the outside of my garment. Like, doesn't that belong on the inside? Well, yes, it does. What's nice is we can tell Chloe where on the fabric this goes. With the graphic selected, so I can see it's highlighted in yellow, I can come over to the property editor of the selected graphic configuration right at the top. Front, I see there's the face option. I'm going to go from front to back. The graphic has suddenly disappeared both in 2D and in 3D. But if I hide my avatar, so avatar display, I'm going to make her invisible by clicking off show avatar. There's my tag right on the inside. So really easy. I was able to tell Chloe to put the tag to the interior of my garment instead of the exterior, which is always really, really nice. And I'm going to unclick that to go back to show avatar. All right. Let's add in one additional colorway before we actually get a pretty image out of Chloe. Now, in order to add an additional colorway, we can come up to the top menus where it says production. We're going to open up colorway. When we open colorway, Chloe's going to kind of take an instant little snapshot here. So if I wanted something maybe a little more centered, I could recenter my 3D window and click this update button. Chloe will take a new colorway and I can start to do anything I need to add additional colorways. One thing I like to do is I do like to label them. Now it could be whatever you're labeling it. It could be style number, a colorway number, or I'm just going to name this green. Keep it simple again, green colorway. But I need a new version to make a new colorway. At the right-hand side, you're going to see these three different buttons, add as custom, or insert keyframe. We're going to do the basic add. We're going to keep it nice and simple, a simple new colorway. It's going to copy the current colorway. I'm going to click the text box because then I like to relabel my things. I'm going to relabel this blue stripe. Perfect. Now that I've relabeled this blue stripe, I'm going to click on my jersey material below because this is really the one I definitely want to recolor. Now, since I'm recoloring it, I'm going to go to the property editor on the right-hand side. Where I change this color to green, I'm going to click on it and I'm going to bring it back to white. The reason I'm bringing my material back to white is that if I don't bring it back to white and when I apply my stripe, it will act like I took a blue and white stripe and I dipped it in a green bath. So we definitely don't want that unless you do. I mean, the world's your oyster, I always like to say. So you could always do that. Every designer does their own thing. But I'm going to bring it back to white, nice kind of starting place, apply and close. And right again, what I see is, hey, this blue stripe didn't change. Now, Clo doesn't constantly update in colorway mode, so you can always click this update button if you want to see the change happen here as well. So don't worry too much. All right, well, we've got a print. How do I apply a print now? I'm going to again open my library by clicking Y. I'm going to take my blue and white stripe. It's a PNG, but I'm going to drag it. And on top of where it says base color map, I'm going to drop it. It's going to replace that texture with my blue and white stripe. If I close the library right there, I can actually see it has completely changed and added in a blue and white stripe to my outfit. I can also, of course, we'll talk about changing their grain direction in a minute. I can also, though, what's really nice, come here and change the rib color. So if I'm like, oh, I do think it'd be nice if that rib color maybe matched my blue, I can click on that tan color box that is currently assigned to my rib. I could change it back to maybe a white if I want to keep it pretty simple. Or I mean, actually, this blue 8 seems to match pretty nice and pretty close. Fun thing is, you can also actually use this eyedropper, which is really cool, to select colors outside of Clo. Currently, it does depend on if you're on an external monitor or your main laptop or computer. I'm on an external monitor here, so it won't work, but we can also always just go ahead and check that. I'm going to hit apply and close, and I've now actually applied a blue neckband. I'm going to update that little color image. And I'm also going to go back to my 2D pattern window. So what's really nice here is we have a 2D pattern window and a colorway editor open and accessible to us. I'm going to go back to 2 because I'm not going to build another colorway. So I'm like, hey, maybe I need to make some changes if I want. One last thing, oh, perfect, we're good. All right, is what do we do if we want to adjust anything about the print that we have applied here? This could be grain line, this could be print direction. In order to adjust those, we can use our edit texture tool. So it looks kind of like a roll of fabric right here called the edit texture tool on our 2D toolbar. And when we have this tool selected, you'll notice that these grain lines appear on all of our pattern pieces. So this is going to affect the grain line of our pattern and what grain everything is cut on. So I could actually tell Clo, hey, let's cut my skirt maybe on a bias. So I can change this. And as I'm holding shift, it will lock at 45. I could even be like, no, let's just do the cross grain and get a nice striped skirt. And I could even do the exact same for the back. Again, selecting the grain line, coming to the very top, and I can rotate to change the grain here. The fun thing is if you actually select the grain line in the very center, we can just change placement, which is really nice if you ever have patterns that need to be balanced or engineered to be in a very specific place. We can always change or edit anything like that that we need to. Again, just nice ways that Clo allows you to edit and alter things in different ways. The last thing that we can also do is this little gizmo in the upper right-hand corner. And what this does is it doesn't change the grain line. It changes the print direction and how the print is printed on the fabric. So right now, my fabric is printed vertically. If I rotate this, see how every single pattern piece is changing the direction of the stripe, but the grain lines are all still stationary. It's actually just changing how they're printed. So fun little thing. I'm gonna right click and hit cancel because I don't want to actually change it. I think this is actually looking kind of like fun. She looks like she's going to referee a sailing event. I'm gonna go with yes. She's a referee for a sailing event. I don't think that exists, but that's fine. So there we go. We've added in a print. We've added in a color. What if we want to make this now kind of like a high res image to actually go ahead and get something pretty and fun out to show our friends what we've made? What we can do is do snapshots or even use our rendering engine. And of course, I think I maybe want to change my avatar's pose first though, because she's looking a little stiff. Most people don't stand in A pose. A pose, it's great for building, but not a very relaxed position. Luckily, the Clo library comes with poses. I'm going to again press Y to open my Clo library. I'm going to go to my Clo tab, to my Clo default library, coming into the avatar folder. I'm going to go into the female folder this time because we are using the female mannequin. Oop, let me move my library a little off of the way. There we go. And there's a pose folder. Now, if you are curious, this is also where several other Clo avatars live. So we have Luna. She's like a teenage size avatar, the newest avatar in Clo. We also have Mia, Naomi, and Yuna. So different avatars to choose from in the future. I'm going to go to the pose folder and I can see some fun little poses here. I'm just going to pick this female V2 standing pose. And I'm going to double click and I get a pop-up says open pose, pose only. And I'm going to click OK. And what happens is Clo will animate and move the avatar into the new position, which I always think is fun to watch. Now, if you're like, God, I really wish there were more poses, this is where you can always go to connect. Now, I know my internet speed is not the greatest right now, so it might be a little slow, but you can go into connect. You can go into the avatar folder here or files. You can come to this filter section where you can then tell Clo, what are you looking for? In this case, you could say, I'm looking for a female avatar. And again, something I always like to do, we can also make sure we check on free because, who doesn't like a good free asset? Always great. Then I can go into what am I looking for? Women, female avatar, and I can click on poses. And Clo is going to show me all of the free different poses that both Clo and other users have uploaded for us to be able to use. So you can actually see a ton of additional poses. And if you want to test any of them, I'm going to go with this one looks kind of fun. I'll double click to download it, click OK, reanimate, and I have her in another new pose, which is kind of fun. So it's really easy, really changeable, which is really fun. Now, once you have her in a pose that you're like, I'm pretty happy with that, let's take our avatar into high res. Now, we haven't talked too much about resolution today. Don't worry, there's going to be more of these, I hope. But we're going to actually take and alter our particle distance. So everything in 3D is made up of particles. And we're working in a lower resolution so that we can work quickly. But now we're going to take it into a higher and a nicer resolution. Whoa. I'm going to use the high res garment button to do this. The reason we are doing this after changing the pose is once you're in high res, everything does go slower. So think about like a heavier file. So you want to do as much work before you do this. I'm going to click high res. We're going to use all the defaults here. Particle distance. It's going to take everything to 5, and 5 is our high res particle. 20 is our default. So it's basically going to find everything between 5 and 20. It's going to remove collision around our pattern pieces. It's going to remove skin offset, which is what protects our avatar while we're building. So it'll actually be able to sit directly on our avatar, no gapes or gaps. And simulation quality, we're going to keep as normal. And I'm going to click OK. Now, depending on your computer speed, this may take a few minutes, give or take. And I'm also now going to turn on simulation by pressing spacebar to let Clo adjust that movement. Now, you can actually see my computer is moving a little bit slower. than it did earlier when we were kind of messing around with simulation turned on because I am now in high res, but the neckband is so much smoother. We can actually see the wrinkles where she's raising up her arm and overall giving a much better visual appearance for us to judge our garment from. One other thing I'm going to turn on is in my 3D vertical toggle under garment rendering style. There are lots of different visuals we can choose from for how to view our fabric. We're going to change from textured surface, which has all materials appear, I always like to think as like a thickness of a piece of paper, or basically 1 pixel thick. And we're going to change it to thick textured surface. So any materials that have actual thickness, let me zoom into her sleeve so we can actually see that. So we can see how this sleeve now has actual thickness. Not a lot, it's still a thin jersey material, but it has some thickness added to it, which is really nice. Perfect. Now we're going to get 2 images out of Clo today. We're going to do a snapshot and we're going to do a render as our like kind of final step. So one of the fastest ways to get an image out of Clo is a snapshot. Super fast. We're going to go up to File, Snapshot, 3D window. Clo is going to ask first, where do you want to save your snapshot? One thing I often recommend people to do is to go to their desktop and make a folder called renders. You can see I have a bunch of random ones here. I like to have all my final images go to one place on my computer, and that is a folder I label renders, and I always know where they're going to go no matter what, because I can always file them away where they need to go later, but my renders kind of all live in one folder on my desktop. And I'm going to label this Clo Live Snapshot. So this will just be the file name, and my file type is going to be a PNG. I'm going to click Save. And now the snapshot window has appeared where I can choose a single or a multi-view. Let's do a multi-view. So we can do like front, side, and back. What's nice is by default, Clo will actually do a front, 2 sides, and a back. But we can also customize these. On our left-hand side, we can choose a preset of how big these images are. So we could do like a 1920 by 1080, a high definition HD image, 4K, or something smaller, and they'll actually go a little faster. So again, think about the higher resolution, the longer things may take. I'm just going to go with kind of that middle. And resolution, we can increase that to 720, 150, or 300, again, depending on what you'd like. I'm going to go for 300. I think my computer will be pretty quick. My view count, I am going to reduce, mostly for the sake of speed, from 4 images to 2. And next here, under colorway, I could choose to do all the colorways or just my current one. I'm going to do just my current striped little, again, her sailing dress. And transparent background. I like to have these have a transparent background so I can use them for anything later on. All right, well, how do I customize these if I need to? The front view I'm pretty happy with actually, but maybe I want a more detailed shot from the side. In that case, I can come up to my 3D window, fit her into the space in any way I see fit. So again, I'm just kind of angling her from a nice perspective. And then as I hover over this view, there's a drop-down menu at the top. This gives us standard views, right, left, front, back, top, bottom, side angles, or a little harder to see, there is a camera icon, which will allow us to take a new snap, a custom snap. And when I click that camera icon, I get a little custom snap. Once I'm happy with my 2 different little angles, I can click Save at the lower right-hand corner. And Clo is going to go ahead and actually save those images. Now, if I come to my desktop, I'm just opening this up from my computer, going into that renders folder, and here they are. I have my 2 little quick, super easy snapshots. I left her shadow turned on, but that's okay. Yeah, add some perspective to her image. But we were able to get two snapshot images of right out of Clo in a matter of moments. Now you might be thinking, oh, but what about that cool render engine? Let's do one quick render for the end of today's live session. Now to open our render engine, we're going to go to render at the very top of our screen and select render. So render, render. Once we have that selected, the right side of our screen is going to turn on our interactive render. And you can see right here, it says click here to start interactive render. Okay, I'm going to click in the gray space anywhere in this scene. And Clo is going to start to calculate this image for me of what I currently have. Give Clo a couple of seconds. It needs to do some thinking. It's doing some thinking. Ah, there we go. Yay. All right, we have our image here ready for us to start working off of. Now, we have three main render tools. We have interactive mode. The play button is actually what we'll press at the very end. And we also have stop interactive. I am going to click stop interactive because I'm a little worried about my internet speed. So I'm clicking stop right now. And you'll see how as I move this around, nothing actually happens. So don't worry about that. All right. Let's go over the different settings that we need to set for an image. The first is going to be our render properties. So that is near the bottom, kind of looks, I always think like a Hollywood clapboard where you're like, and action. And we're going to open up our render properties. On the right-hand side, in our property editor, engine, we have again GPU or CPU. Now, Macs, the newer Macs with some of the M chips will have the option for GPU rendering now. And if you do have the option, I do recommend using that to render quicker. Below there, we have noise threshold. So if you ever seen like an image kind of like that fuzzy effect, that is what we call noise. For noise threshold, I usually will, for a high quality image, reduce this to 0.030. For today, for the sake of speed, I'm going to leave it at the default amount. Maximum render time. If we're just doing a pretty simple image, I just leave it at 20. This does not mean my render engine is going to take 20 minutes for this image. In fact, this image will probably take my computer a minute. But it's just good to know it's there if you ever need to increase it. Quality. This is the quality of the light and the materials and how light bounces around the scene. Now, I often will increase this to high or very high. Again, because we're on a live session, I'm going to keep it at medium for today. Mesh optimization, that is only if you're working with the newer knitwear features, so we're not going to worry about that today. And color mapping type Reinhardt, we are going to leave that as well. Next, we're going to go into our lighting. Now, what's really nice is Clo comes with a lot of different lighting presets. We're not going to build a custom light today. We're just going to use a preset. So if we come to our property editor, we have a preset, and you can try any of these really fun different lights, high contrast, low contrast. Yes, I just saw a question. Can you render animations? You can 100% render animations, and there are several very good tutorials. If Jim has a second to link them, otherwise you can always search under animation, and we have several animation tutorials. Definitely you can render them fully. I'm going to select Studio Medium Contrast for my light preset. Perfect. Camera angle. So this is what often if you have your camera properties, you're usually only going to adjust your field of view. I do usually like to increase my field of view to something a little larger that reflects more my camera, like I might use on an iPhone. For that field of view, I often increase it, and you'll see how it almost looked like my camera jumped back. And if I turn back on my interactive render for a second here, give Clo a second to think. There we go. We can actually see how it jumps, and now I would want to zoom back in to get that kind of new updated angle of her. Perfect. There you go. Overall, pretty happy with that. There are also physical camera options here. If you are a photographer and you're super into photography, you can definitely turn those things on and off. Last but not least is really the most important here, and that is going to be your image slash video properties. This is where you're telling Chloe, what are we actually rendering out? Now, for today, we're going to be rendering out one image. So I'm going to go to image slash video, and I'm going to, from the dropdown, I'm going to be on image. But as somebody was just asking, can you render an animation? This is where you would select animation instead of a single image. Viewpoint, I'm going to just be doing my current viewpoint, but you can actually set custom views. So you can have like a camera and be like, I want the front, I want the back, I want a side, I want a close up. You could have all sorts of crazy and fun custom views. Image size, this is how big is your image going to be. I'm going to again choose something kind of a little below high res. So I'm going to select 1280 by 720. It's going to just kind of adjust that pixel size. Oh, and yes, this quote, yes, it will be recorded, so you guys will be able to watch it and review it because I know I'm throwing a ton of information at you guys in just 2 hours. So don't worry. All right. Lastly, we could choose a background color. Do we want like a fun background color or do you want just transparency? Either option is totally okay. Let's see. I want maybe a fun color to go with for the background. Again, if I click that white box, it opens the color picker. I can choose any sort of color from here. We could go with hot neon pinks or anything like that. I'll go with a sagey green. Oh, excuse me. Perfect. I've got that. Done. Happy with it. My file path now. Again, so underneath the saving section, file name, I like to save it as my project name. Makes it pretty easy. And finally here, underneath this folder section, this is where you can tell Chloe where to save your rendered image. Just like before, if I click this folder, it's going to open up a file. I would want to go to my desktop. I'd want to select that folder labeled renders on my desktop. Only I don't want to go into the folder. I just want to select the folder so it's highlighted. And at the bottom right, choose select folder, or again on a Mac, it will say open. And now Chloe will know that all your future renders will go to this one folder, which is really nice and makes everything very easy to find later on. All right. If we're good, if we've done all of our settings, we set our lighting, we have our outfit, she's in high res, we're ready to render, hallelujah. I'm going to click the stop interactive render. I want to stop it and then click the play button, which is called final render image slash video. And when I click this play button, Chloe is going to start to render out this image. Now, again, keep in mind, depending on the speed of your computer, that is how fast it is going to go. It could be anywhere from, looks like mine will be done in probably under a minute. It could take a few minutes, again, very dependent on your computer's power and capabilities. So don't get flubbergasted if it's taking a little longer. What's nice is you'll get a pop-up as soon as it's done. So it took my computer 21 seconds. That's great. That is absolutely amazing. And I can say, hey, open the folder. I want to see my final image. I'm excited. I can open the folder. And here it is, my final rendered image. Voila, great. So we have our final rendered image done. Now, one last thing always to do, and I actually encourage people to do this often, do this early, is saving. If we're ready and we want to save this, because we worked hard on it, we can go to File, Save Project, or Save As. Since this is a brand new project, I'm going to go to File, Save As, Project. Now you're going to be like, oh, Ariel, what the heck are all these other save options down here? We're going to save as a project, which saves everything. It saves the avatar. It saves the prints. It saves the pattern. It saves the sewing. But in the future, if you're ever like, oh, all I wanted to save was the pose of the avatar, or all I wanted to save was the garment, but not the avatar, there's all of those extra options, which is really nice. But for today, File, Save As, Project. We're going to get this opened. I'm going to save this on my desktop. And I just tell Chloe what I want to save this as. I would recommend saving this. Oh, you know what? No, I will save this in my Chloe Live folder I made. So instead, it's currently in my downloads folder. But if I go into my downloads folder, here's my intro to Chloe dress build. I'm going to save it in there. I'll save this as finished dress. Perfect. I'm going to click save, and Chloe is going to save my file for me so that I can reopen this at any time later. And I'd used a pattern from an older version of Chloe, but don't worry about this. It is totally fine, so do not worry. Otherwise, guys, that is everything for today's very first Chloe Live session. I really hope you enjoyed it. I know I threw a lot of information in quite literally 2 hours at you guys. I really hope you appreciated it. Also, if you enjoyed this and want to see more Chloe Live sessions, feel free to put in the comments or the chat things that you maybe would want to see in the future. You want us to build a pair of joggers, a jacket, something like that. We're going to hopefully keep doing these so that we can do some practice and fun building projects together and have fun learning lots and lots of different things. Oh, I'm so glad you guys are enjoying it. That's great. So again, I hope to see you guys at a future Chloe Live session. Don't forget to, like and subscribe and all of that fun, YouTube stuff. And we will see you guys next time. Thank you so much.